Cool of them to show off Volt's fear of Daigo's battling here, since that isn't something they're gonna really explore in the next episode, since it's more about Daigo's psychological manipulation.
I see that you managed to arrive before your classes started today.
Then why the hell is he in your office, man? And I'm sure you guys are well aware of this, but this is just super lazy of them just cutting into his office and not explaining how Volt got there if he was on time for school and therefore wouldn't have a logical reason to be in the principal's office.
Most of the time, I get here just when the bell rings. Will he make it to the classroom? Yes, he's through!
To be fair, I have to admire the balls on Volt to talk to his goddamn principal like that. But I guess at this point, Volt has been in the office enough to know he can get away with it. And besides, this is pretty good for showing off his childish nature in that he doesn't quite understand how, authority works.
Oh, really? I hope it has something to do with your alarm.
I mean, if I were the principal, I wouldn't even assume that Volt had one. I mean, you would think if he had one, it would have woken him up at least one time, right?
Getting up for school would be easy if we had a Beyblade Club.
I mean, it is a well-established sport in this world, so I'm kind of surprised that the school doesn't have one yet, since it is shown that other schools have them, and generally when one school gets into a sport, the others have a team for it, but hey, whatever. Since it's clear that none of the groups of Bladers really are big enough to form an actual club, even if the school did have one, so it would still be, a challenge to maintain it if there weren't enough members.
Guys, want to sign up for the Beyblade Club?
I'm already in baseball.
Basketball.
To be fair, that would be what you would expect if you started a club in the middle of the year, since everyone would already have commitments. I also like how they show a bunch of different types of people to show how hard of a time Volt will actually have starting this club, considering how many people don't want to join him here.
He knows that I need to train more. I spend a lot of time in his office. We're tight.
To be honest, Volt, I don't really think being in someone's office a lot makes you tight. I think it just makes you more known by that person, but hey, considering how he talks to him, I guess it makes an amount of sense, right? Besides, this is just the simplified version he's telling to Rantaro. Obviously, this wasn't actually how it went down, so I can deal with this line a lot better.
Every great team starts with a few star players.
I mean, that isn't exactly how it works, just in movies and TV. In real life, a club has a bunch of people join it, and then the star players become obvious afterward.
I'm the one who got permission for the club, so I'm the captain.
I mean, that isn't bad logic. It's better logic than I'm more stylish, so I get to be captain.
Fine then. We'll settle this with a battle.
I do like how Rantaro takes the line Volt said and kind of turns it against him, because I presume Volt was talking about the district tournament when he said champion, but Rantaro turns the line into people expect the stronger Blader to be the captain. Which makes this a nicely written argument. Also, this line is insanely well delivered. Okay, I'll shut up now.
Suits me. There's nothing I do better than winning.
You must be bad at most things, because you don't exactly do that too well. To be fair, this probably is just trash talk, but still, I don't really think Volt should be saying that after he, got spanked by Rantaro last time.
Got some crazy fast speed in his first hit.
Firstly, the hit that burst Cabeus wasn't his first hit, it was after several hits. Secondly, the reason it managed to do so much damage to a defense type was not because of the speed, it was because of the downforce allowing him to go to a steeper angle, which allowed for better contact with the Bay without it losing any stamina via scraping.
Surprise! Didn't see that guy.
And this just proves my point even more about the fact that Volt blurting out his strategy against Ken didn't really matter, since Volt didn't say anything here, but since he doesn't have a single other move, it's obvious he'll go with a rush launch. That aside, this is a good strategy from Rantaro to deal with it, though later in the season, they frame it like this trajectory is only possible with an angled launch from the stamina/defense type, but here we see Rocktavor go for a level shot, so that's kind of weird.
It's a famous proverb about a dog chasing its own tail, isn't there? Which means keep doing that and you'll never catch me.
Not only is this some pretty good trash talk from Rantaro, but I like how this moment is pretty good to kind of almost contrast his battle persona from, how he really is, and the fact that there was a degree of humility involved in him accepting the flaws of his Bay and trying to adapt to beat rush launch, but also here he is just completely arrogant, effectively, about how he's beating Volt, which is a pretty good character moment for him.
You have to play fair. You can't just hide.
This is another cool bit of development that Volt has, in that here he's saying that Rantaro's strategy is unfair, but pretty much for the rest of the show, he doesn't really do that again. Although this is what I meant in the first episode when I said, while Volt's resonance is more subtle, so to speak, it is ultimately yielding the same results, in that he gets around Rantaro's strategy here purely off of his resonance, rather than, coming up with a counter plan. But, I can deal with it.
My time to shine. Now, rush launch!
Another instance of no power-up flare, but at least they do it for both characters so it doesn't look like one of them isn't trying. So while I don't understand why you wouldn't use a bank animation every time you should be using it, I mean, this one's better than it was in episode 1.
And Roktavor is safe in the stadium.
I do think it's funny how Rantaro continues to flex his stamina later, when here he almost ran out of stamina, despite Valtryek using a shit ton of it on missing Roktavor. Like, there's no reason to show Roktavor running this low on stamina, and in fact, this moment works way better if it isn't, because it makes the burst more impressive.
Wait, hold on! It was not a tie.
Also, it is cool that Rantaro wants to earn his wins, so he doesn't want to just tie just because the others weren't quite paying attention. Also, you could say introducing humility around blading here could be setting up the finale, but that might be a bit of a stretch. Still a cool moment, though.
Well, I'm glad to see you can take a win without embarrassing yourself.
Oh, gee, thanks.
Yeah, this is just so great that they actually just let Volt learn the lesson he did last episode and carry it on. And again, while episode 2 isn't great, all this payoff and the 2 that follow it really make it feel a lot better. And while we're on the subject of Volt's arcs, they even have him have a little small one where he just doesn't get as annoyed at these puppet shows anymore, which is a good way of showing how he's got more humble.
Hate to say it, but our family travels a lot doing these puppet shows. So it's hard for Ken to make friends easily. I'm glad he has you.
I do like how they not only show where Ken got the idea for using the puppets on his hands for his communication, but it's also a good way to deliver the necessary exposition about Ken's character and why he uses his puppets so much.
We're not enemies, we're rivals.
Rivals?
Yeah, that means we can be friends, too.
I do like how they establish the distinction between enemies and rivals near the start, because it is a genuine theme that the show keeps, that you can compete with someone and they can still be your friend, so it's nice that they set it up here.
Because we already lost to you, but against him, we've got a shot.
I do like how they have Volt get a little annoyed here about someone thinking of Shu as a taller order than him, since it does show that, again, while he cares about his friend, he still obviously has his own pride. And I also like how Ken recognizes that and lets him down easy on the fact that he would rather battle Shu than him.
Yeah, the puppet guy. How could I forget?
So I do like how while Shu was reluctant to battle at first, he doesn't show it once Ken walks out. Just shows he likes to give his opponents the respect they deserve.
The heaviest class of defense axle.
So it's weird, because from the way Shu phrases this, you'd think he'd be talking about the disc, but that would be wrong. He is talking about the driver here, because Press was actually the heaviest driver released in this generation, on defense types at least. But the question still remains, why does the weight of his driver matter at all? Wouldn't you want a more comment on how heavy the bay is as a whole, instead of just how heavy the tip is?
Storm Spryzen is a balance type. It's the perfect balance of offense and defense capabilities.
It is nice during this scene how they cut back and forth between Ken and Shu and their thought processes, because it really well establishes the analytical part of the game, which we haven't seen as much so far, since we've only really seen Volt battle, and since he isn't a strategist, we don't really know how Blade has come up with their plans yet.
If you're gonna drag this out, Kerbeus can wait.
Also, do you think that Volt accidentally ran into a standard strategy of handling a defense type, or do you think Shu is using the same strategy Volt did to tie with Kerbeus? That being, attack it over and over to tip it on its axis and force it to run out of stamina.
You're wasting a lot of energy letting yourself get so riled up.
It's nice how this is kind of actually half advice, half trash talk. That being, he's telling him to cool it, because it won't help, but also Shu saying that he doesn't really care what they have to say.
Looks like he's second-guessing himself. That's his greatest weakness.
It's also a great subtle moment to have Shu's first strategy be more based on the Bey and the second more based on the Blader, because it shows you can build a strategy around your opponent or your opponent's Bey, which is a good setup since Daigo's strategy is all Blader based. Again, I know a lot of people do credit this as Shu and Storm's Surprising theme, so it makes more sense to use it. But again, considering they're going to use this in the final battle, both in this season and the next one, they really should be saving it more. And the fact that they overuse it this much this season does show a little bit that they didn't have as much care around, you know, keeping the music for when it really matters. Something they get a lot better at as the show goes along. So a couple interesting things about this moment. Firstly, again, the fact that Ken's using chain launch without naming it is still kind of annoying. But secondly, the fact that to use an offensive chain launch, Kobayas has to hit the wall here is interesting, considering when chain launch gets its name, when it's used against Unicrest, it doesn't need to hit the wall to use it. So that's pretty interesting.
Let's go! Counter break him!
This is such a cool way to establish Shu's signature technique, and I also like how they make sure this battle doesn't feel close, because since Ken already lost to Volt, they need to have Shu crush him to show how much stronger Shu is than Volt.
Don't go there!
Haru doesn't like talking about feelings.
Also cool of them to have this moment of Ken acting a bit more shy after him and his puppets seemed a lot more confident before. Because again, it does show the facade nature of his puppet voices.
You should always train on your own.
Will they set up Shu's arc around learning to accept being in a team here? Again, really shows how much good character work was packed into this scene, despite it predominantly being about this battle.
A counter break, huh?
Here's a question. Is Wakia surprised that Shu would use it on Ken, as in, like, why would you bother using your move on this guy? Or is it more of a, he's surprised Shu even has that move? Because if it's the second, then how did Shu burst him in the last year's district tournament? I'm just gonna assume it was the first. Also, more of Wakia and Daigo hanging out, which is beyond interesting considering what I talked about with Daigo not having too much insight on Wyvern as a Bey later.
That's enough! You're gonna sit down and eat with them!
Pretty good gag to show that Volt's mother does have a bit of a temper, like Volt himself. Which is good for further fleshing out her character. This is a pretty good moment as well to not only show the general quality of Volt's mom's cooking, something that will become very frequently pushed throughout the show, but also to kind of, in a more roundabout way, show Ken warming up to Volt, which is good considering he's hanging out with them by the next episode. Well, this episode's really good, almost on the level of episode 1. It's got some great moments with Volt and Rantaro, some great moments with Volt and Ken, as well as having a good moment to show Shu's strength as a blader, and even some more stuff with Wakia and Daigo. Well, see you for the next one, which is one of my favorites.